Plastic Patty, congrats on first. Thanks for stopping by, my friend. Jones, welcome in. An A fan. My chat is popping right now. All the stars are here.
Awesome. Could be a good
Hell
one.
yeah. Oh. How's everybody doing? How was everybody's Monday? I had the slowest day at work. So, Elise, do you know about the like hate raid bots going around on Twitch right now?
No, I don't know.
So there are like these bots, and there are like some like actual accounts and stuff. But there are people like going around like doing hate raids and doing denial of service stuff. And so if you get there's like I'll send you a list of names that you should ban in your chat.
The second they come in.
Yeah, so like they'll follow you and won't say anything, and they want you to go and click on their profile, and if it's right, yeah, that was one of the Nate fan. Chloe already took care of him, and they'll denial of service stuff and all that, and because they can grab your IP address from that. So, and then there are some that'll do like hate raids and whatnot, or follow botting, and so there's like a list of names that you can like ban so that they can. You can just kind of make sure that they don't screw around. Anything with Hoss in the name, that's one.
Oh, interesting. Okay, thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, but I just got followed by Judge Judy Slayer, and that's one of them.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That seems like such a cool name.
I know. What the fuck?
I'm kind of ghosting today. I'm a little ghosty today in the green screen.
What color is the shirt?
It's actually blue, but it must have some green because yeah.
Pretty close.
It's okay. I was like, oh, you know, if it turns out green, clear, I can just turn on a different shirt, but I forgot to do that. It's okay. I'm gonna go with being a ghost today. I think I'm okay with that.
I was able to turn down a little bit on my side. Jones, I don't know the specifics of what happens if they get your IP address, because I am not a nerd. All right, let's get that straight.
Are you sure about that?
I don't know shit about computers because I'm not a nerd. All right, so just making sure we're all on the same page.
I don't think all nerds have to know about computers.
Nope, that is a fact, Elise.
Yeah,
And
you're a T-nerd, right? At the very least.
Nope. Oh, nerds are only computer folks. You heard it here.
Wow. Those are fighting words, Colin.
I burned some of this sense at the beginning this time instead of waiting until like halfway through when I'm already distracted.
Oh, it's interesting. It's like it goes in and out of clear or not clear. Oh, that's cool. I'm not a ghost anymore.
So according to AFAN, one of the Haas is a real person. I think there's 3 zeros before their name though, and something after, so they're impersonating actual people as well.
Clever.
Yeah.
They got nothing better to do. It's not like they're making any well, I guess, yeah, you said they're getting your IP address, so then they could try to do something from that, but
It potentially could, yeah.
what a freaking waste.
I don't understand like the motivation for shit like that. It doesn't make sense. It's okay, Jones. You might be okay. You might have an STD. I don't know, but
Oy,
shit,
careful.
okay.
Careful.
Time to delete your Twitch? Damn. Not a day too soon.
So I'm also it everywhere. My water's hot. I'm ready to drink some tea.
Yep. Let me finish lighting my incense, and I'll be ready to go.
Oh, you're setting the mood.
Yeah, I got some osmanthus incense on a stick, and then I'm also just some ocean scented incense for the backflow cone, because I've got a 2 incense spot thing, and I love it.
I'm getting to your chat. I want to watch your chat.
Cool. Are you on Twitch as well tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
And Reddit. We've got quite a few on Reddit hanging out with us so far.
All right. Cool. Say I'm ready to go whenever.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Perfect. Well, as always, welcome to the first steep. I think it's our 7th episode now that we recorded, and because I just had a lot going on, we still haven't posted anything of recorded episodes, but we're getting there. I promise. It is.
Hey, the content exists.
You
know,
can't rush perfection. But as always, my name is Colin. I'm a Twitch streamer and attempting to make content on other platforms if I ever get around to that as well. But I'm just kind of obsessed with tea and like to drink tea and make content about tea. And yeah, I met Elise here, and Elise, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, my name is Elise. Thank you so much for keeping this train going, this podcast, The First Steep. I've been studying and working with tea for a decade now. I run a software company called Tealet. It is a B2B marketplace for independent tea growers. So I've had the great fortune and opportunity to travel around the world, work with some incredible tea masters, tea growers, tea artists all over Asia and all over the world. So Colin, we met on TikTok, and he says, hey, I'm learning about tea. You've been learning about tea. Why don't we do a podcast together? So we've been doing this, and what we do in this podcast is we pair teas. And in doing that, not only do we get to enjoy the teas, but really get to learn about them, and with the acute knowledge that I have of the origin of all the teas, it ends up being a very educational experience. So we hope that you all can learn a lot more about tea, especially intuitively about tea, through experiencing this podcast.
Yeah. So I know I've definitely learned a lot, and I hope that we can share some of that knowledge.
Yeah, for sure.
Ooh, I'm gonna warm up the teaware, but I made the title of the stream this time "More Black Tea," because we drink black tea a lot lately, which is funny because I like rarely, if ever, drink black tea, and so it's been kind of fun getting to like experience some different ones lately that I probably wouldn't normally try with my normal kind of leaning toward the greener leaves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. You gotta drink some black tea. That's like the most drank tea in the U.S. That's what all of our friends and neighbors are drinking. So we gotta keep up and learn about it. Yeah. But don't worry, we're drinking good black teas. We're not drinking any bad ones. Even the cheap one that we did drink is like a good one.
I wouldn't call it cheap, just affordable.
Affordable, there we go. That's a better, thank you for making my statement better. All right, my wares are clean too. Are we just gonna do one at a time?
Sure, which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with that Vanghetti Pecco, because we've already drank that one.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we can just have that base before we get into the Japanese black.
Cool. So this is that broken Sri Lankan tea, right?
Yep. We've already talked about this tea, yeah.
Yeah.
The Thieves tea, remember?
Right. The one they would take it and like macerate it, which would break up the leaves as well as oxidize them at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm caught up. My brain has. My brain's done the thing.
It did the thing. I need some L-theanine.
So last night on stream, we also had a black tea, which again is weird because like I said, don't really drink black tea.
Yeah.
But we did have a black tea last night on stream, and it was another Indian black tea, but it was from Manipur. And I don't know what it is, but the nice thing about black tea sometimes is I feel like they really make me like the right ones. They really calm me down, really make me kind of nice and kind of cool and stuff. And I feel like a lot of that just has to do with potentially lower caffeine from the oxidation. Maybe, who knows? I don't know. Hard to tell. But I don't know. It's amazing how calming a nice cup of black tea can be.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it is gonna have less of the caffeine and less of the theanine, but still enough to relax your body. And the processing of black tea does mellow a lot of the energies, unless you're masticating it like CTC. But you know, it's a strange thing about this tea that we had noticed last time when we drank it was that even though it is masticated, it's not very tannic. It's still very smooth and full character.
And I think I remember saying something about how it almost had like a characteristic similar to like a choux-pu'er, with like that kind of like sweeter earthy flavor as opposed to that kind of like maltier earth flavor. It reminds me a lot of differences between like maybe like Yensha and like a Taiwan oolong, you know, kind of like these like softer kind of focuses on like different kinds of flavors. But it's just, I don't know, it's interesting to see how terroirs can be similar to each other as well sometimes. But
such a pretty color.
I know, it's so dark and rich. It's almost like motor oil.
Let's drink a cup of motor oil. So yeah, just a
Chocolate
reminder,
syrup.
this tea is coming from Amba Tea Estate, which is mid-level elevation of Sri Lanka. It is a established tea garden that has new ownership. The new ownership are Europeans, but the new owners are treating it as a co-op, as like a non-profit, as a humanitarian project. So they do things very differently there, and I went into great detail of it last week, and I won't do it this week, but I think the main thing to remember about that garden and why it's important that this humanitarian angle is there. It's not just like humanitarian, like, oh, this is fair trade, pay more for it. It's more like, hey, we're going to figure out how to make a very high quality product, so that way we can just be empowering for ourselves versus, you know, saying that we're doing good. So one of the main things that they do outside of the skill building, which is really important, skill building is something that, like, in the conversation of international development and like mobilization of marginalized people, the skilling to like acquire a skill is not spoken about a lot. So they do like rotation of all of the positions. So
right, I remember you talking about that. Yeah,
that's actually very important because you know, it doesn't silo any of your labor. It allows all of your labor to be empowered, and then they're skilled workers. They're super smart, sharp, and they can then take that value and skill to other places.
There's like a level of like ownership almost that you can kind of take over your task if you know like what's going to happen later down the line. That I think is important. But something that I've kind of thought about since we talked about it before with that whole humanitarian argument, I'm glad you brought it up because it just reminded me of this. The approach here feels like you said, a little bit more truly humanitarian, because the opposite of that you referred to kind of almost reminds me of like when you like a group of people in a room for like, you know, a charity event or something, and they want to talk about all the good things that they've done, you know, and let everybody else know all the good things that they've done. Whereas this feels more like, hey, we're just actually going to do that thing. You know, we don't need to make this big deal about it. We just need to make good tea.
Yep.
And there's something that I feel like, you know, as you drink more tea, you kind of pick up a little bit more on different notes, different things in your teas. Excuse me. And something that I feel like I've started to notice a little bit more lately is being able to kind of, at least in terms of my own tea journey, is kind of like notice levels of processing in tea. And you can kind of tell where care is taken a little bit differently. And I'm curious with that mindset to reapproach this tea of like thinking about like the care that went into making the tea, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that was a rambly way of saying yes.
But the garden does have some more conventional kind of charity systems. There's really only one, but it's a big one. So 10% of all revenue, not just profit, all revenue goes back to the workers.
Amazing.
Yeah. And like that was just like the cleanest cut way that they could figure that out. Like, so it's just 10% of all revenue goes back to the worker, directly to the workers as a bonus, not as like social welfare, not as like,
Sure.
oh, here we installed some plumbing for your houses, because that's what happens to a lot of these fair trade gardens in Assam and other places. Is fair trade has a 20% premium that you're allowed to put onto your product just because it's fair trade. That's at the retail end, right? And so half of that premium has to be paid back to the fair trade organization, which is kind of bogus. And then the other half is for social programs at the garden. And those social programs are like monitored by fair trade. Like you have to do certain things. Like fair trade kind of obligates you. This year, you need to install electricity for your workers, or this year you need to install running water. And so they'll take that money and they'll invest it into the infrastructure, but then there's no follow-up that you have to actually provide the service. So I was watching a BBC documentary where the journalists went to some of these tea gardens and saw that they had installed plumbing or they had installed electricity but never turned the water on or never turned the electricity on. They just followed the rules, the bare minimum that fair trade. So that's just like, basically that's a long story of like this whole like master worker mentality that like master knows what's better for you and like they need to build it for you. That's so bogus. And really at the core of it's not about money. Like, yes, it's great that AMBA is giving 10% of their revenues to their workers. Like, that's nice. That's awesome. I think the skilling of the workers is much more valuable than that money.
Sure.
And the autonomy.
Teach man to fish.
Yeah. The autonomy is much more valuable than the money itself. And so I'm really big on autonomy. Like, even if some fair trade garden is like, oh, look at these great programs we do this, and I'm like, I would rather see your workers building this infrastructure for themselves versus relying on you to use profits to do that for them.
Well, again, I mean, as with most tea related conversations, we're back, I feel like, to colonialism in a whole.
Speaking of colonialism, how's your Ceylon?
Right, and super lovely, very delicious,
So
chocolatey, so good. But no, I just like this whole idea because there's issues just kind of like on a personal note. I remember like being a kid and there being some issue at some point, like with like my mother's like work or something, where her employer wanted to decide a certain percentage of her paycheck had to go towards X, you know. I don't remember what it was, but it was like some like thing. But it was kind of this issue of like, typically that's the employee's right to, you know, like to decide where that goes. Sure. But you know, the issue was obviously that they were deciding where that goes, and it just kind of like that reminds me of like my first like experience with an issue of this, where it always feels like the people in charge, and this is a beautiful example of capitalism, colonialism in and of itself, in that the people in charge always seem to think that they know what's best for the people below them, but at the end of the day, like you know, they wouldn't have what they have without the people that they believe are below them. And so you kind of get into this really weird situation of, like you're saying, like people deciding what's best for others because they couldn't know for themselves what's best.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this also goes back to, like, because now I'm just, the tea already has me tea drunk. this gets into that, you know, that argument of like, well, don't give this person money because they're just going to go spend it on drugs. Well, that, you know, again, like it's how, you're right with this autonomy, and you've hit a point with me personally. It's a big deal for me, but like when you empower the people that are actually making the product to take an ownership of it, there is that like elevation to the actual final product. And I'm starting to understand a little bit more about fair trade now. So anyway, ramble, sorry, back to center. Yeah. It's chocolatey.
It is chocolatey. It's so easy to drink.
Mm-hmm. But no, I just, there's a level of care that I can taste in the tea as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that comes back to kind of that level of ownership, that level of autonomy kind of in the tea, you know, personal pride in your work.
Yes. Yeah. Gung fu.
Yeah.
Even the workers, you know, even the labor can be practicing gung fu. And so that's why when I do traveling and work with tea growers that are new to hand tea processing, to quality tea, I teach them gung fu cha. Like, they should not be excluded from that craft. Like, it's a part of the entire process. And it's like, you know, like, we are practicing gung fu at our tea tables, being mindful of all the details and hospitality and, you know, producing the best cup of tea that we can. Yeah, the same thing can be happening at the farm on that level. And so that this tea is an exact example of that. It possesses the character of Ceylon. But short story, today on a streaming app, there's a streamer. I look forward to befriending this gentleman. I'm sure there's a good friendship that will come. But we had a little bit of a squabble today because I jumped into his stream, and his stream was like hot tea. Like, he was just like a tea person, you know, which is cool. I'm like, oh wow, someone that does tea. But he's like Caribbean style, like herbal blends and herbal teas that he was calling tea. And I ended up telling him, you know, like, well, none of those things are tea. And he got very angry, and he was like, well, you want to debate this now? You think you're a tea expert coming in here? You want to debate it? And I was like, it's not going to be a debate. I just like, and then he says, you know, people come through here and they say that tea can only come from the one plant, and that plant is called Ceylon. And I was like, oh dear, this is going to be a long day. I tried to educate him what Ceylon means, and he still didn't get it. He was like, no, that's tea. Like, yeah, you're talking about that plant, but, you know, anything that's made with hot water is tea. And I was like, yeah, that's okay. I said, your use of the word tea is fine. You know, I'm not offended by it. I'm just saying, like... But yeah, that was a new one. I'd never heard anybody thinking that Ceylon meant tea.
That is a new one.
Yeah. But that, you know, so this is what happens when these cultural products and cultural stories get into the mainstream. It's very easy for these things to get confused, you know. Right. Very easy.
So, and a wonderful example of that, I feel, is the number of people that I've met that when you start talking about tea, and you just mentioned a white tea that you have, nobody knows what white tea is, first of all. But what you find out is that one of the major conceptions about tea is that white tea is like the unopened young buds, you know, no leaves. And the green tea, it's not fully developed leaves. They're very young leaves. And the black tea, that's the fully developed leaf. And you're like, how does oolong happen? And they're like, magic. But there's we know that the source of a lot of misinformation is just simply like gatekeeping of the information in the first place, right? With colonialism and with kind of like the marketing schemes and whatnot to like sell the lower quality tea, and basically like just kind of like shoving people out of the conversation so that they couldn't learn. But it's just amazing to me that we've made it this far in our history, and we're still as a larger community just so confused by the differences. And yeah, I don't know, that is very far away from the but yeah, it's just I mean, it all comes back to an issue of education, I feel like, and that's something we talk about a lot too. But
yeah.
in the second scene, I'm getting like a tobacco note as well.
Yeah. Yep. I get that.
You get that too? Yeah. Like
I mean,
not quite.
I think that like the tobacco and that like sweet earthy character are very similar. I've experienced them at the same time. They seem to go well together.
My favorite is when you get like a smoky tobacco flavor and you're like, oh, am I smoking cigarettes or drinking tea? Jesus Christ.
Or maybe you're just drinking tea with a tea master in Taiwan. That's usually what it's like, because they're chain smoking cigarettes as you're drinking tea together.
Speaking of TikToks and tea, and not speaking of now, but back at the beginning, one of my favorites is just this guy drinking tea and he's smoking a cigarette, and the voiceover is, I have tea with my friend every day, and I asked him why he always smokes cigarettes when he's drinking tea, and he says, funny, my doctor actually gave me just the exact reason recently. He told me there's a reason why I smoke cigarettes and drink my tea. And I said, oh yeah, what's that? And the reply is, oh, because I'm addicted.
But
dad jokes galore.
But hey, the tea masters in Taiwan that I've asked that, I'm like, okay, so I've gotten several different answers, but the ones in Taiwan are the best, because they say, oh, I smoke cigarettes because it helps with my olfactory receptors. It keeps them strong, keeps them open. And he says the best way to drink a tea is that if you take a drag of your cigarette and like let the smoke out, and immediately after you let the smoke out, then you take your tea, and then you take another drag of the cigarette, and like the tobacco smoke, something opens up your olfactory and you can taste the tea better. I call bogus, like 100%.
I'm calling bogus 100%. Listen, I worked in a kitchen in college. I smoked cigarettes through college. Like, I'm calling bogus. There's no way. Dude's just addicted.
You're just addicted. That's funny. Now, the other one was in Hangzhou, Dragonwell country. We were trying to film late night the final roasting process in the wok. They do that all throughout the night, and we're trying to film, and all around the wok, there's like a trim around, like a little counter around the wok where they can put things. And it's just ashtrays, just filled with cigarettes everywhere, and they constantly have a cigarette coming out of their mouth as they're doing the tea work. And I told him, I was like, hey, I'm not telling you not to smoke, actually, because I wasn't buying their tea, so I wasn't really concerned about the quality. We were just there to film.
Sure.
And I said, but no one's gonna want to buy your tea or ever come visit you if they see you smoking cigarettes. Like, can you put that out of the frame? And it was a big humbug thing for him to move the ashtrays out of the way. And he says, the reason why we have to smoke is because we have to work all night. It's how we stay awake. So there's always some excuse. I mean, that's just addiction, but it's such an interesting cultural thing, I feel, as well, because the more and more I learn about Chinese culture, the more I learn that tobacco and smoking is very, a very common daily activity. And like a handshake in China is like handing someone a cigarette. Like, that's a very friendly greeting, especially among men. Yeah. Yeah, so if you ever go to to China, Colin, I'd recommend having like a pack of cigarettes, and then you have like the fancier pack for when you meet fancier guests and you want to impress them with the nicer cigarette. But I mean, even your friends, even casual people you meet, like if you're gonna go like shake their hand and say like offering a cigarette is like, it's interesting. Yeah, it's a bonding experience, you know.
Yeah, sure, I can imagine. I can see that.
Are you ready to move on to the next tea?
I am actually really excited about this next tea.
Okay,
so
cool.
Yes.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna rewarm my
Yeah, I just turned my water back
tea
on.
slightly. Yeah. I still got my water hot, but like I would like for my teapot to be hot as well. So I have never had a black tea from Japan. So this will be my first one.
It's not common, but
no.
It's becoming more and more. The trend started in the 1980s, and that was just like the time at which Japanese tea growers were being supported to learn about black tea production, because up until that point there really was no black tea produced. I mean, I'm sure people done it. Like, black tea is so easy to make. I'm sure there's tea farmers that just did it, you know, even just for themselves.
You just leave the leaf out. It does its thing.
Yeah. But this is a very specific style of black tea, and you know, it looked very similar to that Sri Lankan black tea. And the reason why is because the movement for educating tea growers in Japan about black tea processing was a collaborative project between the government of Japan and Sri Lanka. So there was like a cultural exchange. Yeah, there was a cultural exchange between the two countries. I don't know what the Sri Lankan tea industry got from Japan. I'm sure there was something. But there was several different groups of Japanese tea growers that went to Sri Lanka. Because when I lived in Japan and, you know, befriended Japanese tea growers, they'd always show me, you know, like, because I'm traveling around the world, so they want to show their travels around the world. So they're like, oh, here, I went to Sri Lanka, and I was confused. I'm like, why did you go to Sri Lanka of all countries? Like, that's kind of weird. And then, you know, they showed me like folders and little booklets of like education materials, and it was a pretty like carbon copy translation of black tea processing in Sri Lanka to Japan. And the reason why the Japanese government wanted to support this project was because they thought that they could support, you know, diversity in the tea industry and growing the market with different types of teas and getting people interested in different types of teas. And so this was the style of tea they chose to go with.
See, and to me that's interesting because I feel like just understanding like Japanese tea culture as little as I do, but just enough. With the focus on green tea, I find it interesting that they would go to black tea as the option, but I might find out once I taste it.
Yeah, I just think that there was probably a lot of thought that went behind this. Like, I doubt it was like a haphazard, like last minute decision, because you know the Japanese have invested a lot into tea research and doing it well. Even like Taiwan's tea research, which is probably the most elite in the world, was started by the Japanese. Because Taiwan used to be colonized by Japan. And when they were colonized by Japan, that was one of the initiatives that the Tea Research Center in Taiwan was started by a Japanese man. And now, of course, it's not, but like even the research that set up there was Japanese. And so I'm sure they did the research to find the correlations in terroir. And varieties, and knowing that it would be a good fit, like this style of black tea would be a good fit for Japanese tea cultivars.
And if I remember correctly on the reading or on your website, this is a Yabukita, right?
Yeah. Most tea in Shizuoka is Yabukita. Yeah, which is usually going towards sencha. Are you okay?
What am I smelling? Like, that is different. There's like a spiciness to it almost.
Yep.
Very interesting.
Smells nice. Pretty color.
Yeah. Like still kind of see-through, but a little bit of kind of a brownish ruby. That camera sucks. All right. I'm gonna let that so I don't burn myself. But already, like, it smells completely different from anything I've ever had black tea wise. There's like, again, it's not, it doesn't, like, you know how you can like smell tannin almost? Yeah, I still can't smell any of that like I can with some black teas. But I can smell malt. Which I didn't get out of the Vanghetti Picot. So
yeah, I think the Vanghetti has a bit more of like a chocolatey sweet taste to it, while this one is a lot deeper and richer and maltier, but then not too malty, because sometimes the maltiness and the tannins play into that too, can kind of be a little bit intense, too much. But this is very mild and easy to drink, and it has that clay. It has that clay character to it too, and that's just probably minerality from the. Enjoy.
Cheers. Are you about to say something else?
Nope.
Is that citrus?
Yeah.
What the
There's
I'm
lots
sorry.
going on. There's lots going on.
What the fuck? It's like orange peel. Almost.
Yeah, that's a good description. I like that.
That is really something else. There's like I can taste like some of the similarities between this and the Vanghetti Picot in terms of like that kind of potential processing, but this is completely in a world of its own when it comes to black tea. I'm a little bit kind of shocked. I'm a little shook, Elise. As the youth say, shooketh.
Really? You're talking in old English now? The kids?
Apparently. I have no idea. I say that as if I'm not 24.
I was about to say, yeah, you're the kid around here.
Yeah, I was like, I'm a child. I am a baby. Oh my gosh. I am so excited to learn more about this team. Like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, it's good stuff. And they process it only during the summertime.
Okay.
Because they're using the same gardens that they use for their other green teas, their sencha and their kukicha, even their hojicha, their genmaicha. They will process all of those teas in the beginning of the season, and then the more mature leaf in the summer is what's used for the black tea.
Say these are definitely a larger size than a larger sized leaf than like the genmaicha.
Yeah.
And of course the Vanghetti Picot, yeah.
Similar color though.
Yeah.
You can tell very similar oxidation.
I wouldn't say same color in the liquor necessarily.
Oh, no, yeah, the liquors are different, but the leaf...
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But the leaf itself, yeah, totally.
Yeah. But yeah, you can tell that this is a finer quality process, the Japanese black, just by the size of the leaf. But it is pretty broken up. That's why, yeah, when you said you'd use a Kyushu, I was like, oh yeah, use a Kyushu, that'd be nice.
Well, I just this might actually be a good topic for an episode. I don't know. I was really nervous to use my Kyushu for anything other than Japanese greens because of what I'd read about dedicating teapots and all this stuff. And I recently found out just clean it really well. Like run some boiling water through it every now and then. It's fine. Same with the Yixing clay. Like, maybe make some similar things in it. Don't throw like a white tea in there after you made a bunch of like shopuer or something like that. But like, yeah. So I kind of wanted to try experiment a little bit with this. I wanted to put some other teas in here as well. But yeah, I'm kind of glad I pulled this out. So it was a good choice.
Hey, so the geology of clay workshop from Friday?
Yes.
That was a question that I had asked Shiloh about, or I think someone in chat had asked about dedicated. Actually, no, I asked because I had told him that I was gifted a pot, the unglazed pot, and that the person that gifted it to me said that I do not need to dedicate one tea to it, that it's not an absorbent clay. And so I asked him, how do we know? And da-da-da. And he says, yeah, if the pores are very large, it will absorb the flavors of the tea, and you'll need to season the tea, the clay. But he was saying also that it's also kind of a myth, that whole thing too.
Yeah.
He was like, it's hardly noticeable. He was like, you may just want to do it out of practice, but to like assume that like you're ruining a teapot if you put different teas in them, or you're gonna ruin the tea by doing that. He was like, that's all kind of a myth. So that's good news for us.
Well, say one thing that I've noticed specifically with Yixing clay, and I've got an unglazed clay Gaiwan as well, and this Kyushu, is that it seems to be less that you need to dedicate clay to one type of tea, and more that the vessel, and considering the shape, the maker, the type of spout, the type of clay, all that combined, really. The teapot just wants a specific teas, right? It's going to work well with specific teas. It's not going to work well with others. And what I found specifically with my newest pot is just that it's more of an adventure of discovering what does this teapot want to make, and not what do I think I'm going to dedicate this pot to. Like I found that this works really well with like Dongding, Baozhang, like shengpuers and other yensha, it's fine, so it just kind of depends, but anyway.
So dare I ask, do you have a favorite?
It's this one. You knew that. You knew that. I don't know why you're asking. See, what's wild to me, and this is something that's super cool, and what I love about this is that, so basically, just so I understand, the processing between the two teas that we've had tonight is not necessarily identical, but at least very, very similar, right? Mm-hmm. So, processing aside, we're looking at cultivar, land, blah blah blah. This is what I love so much about tea, is that people don't understand the range of flavors that can be present in the infusion, and this is just such a beautiful example of that, I feel, because if you had no idea what this was and I made a cup of tea and you just used to like Earl Grey, English breakfast, that type of stuff, you would probably think this is a flavored tea, because it's just so vibrant and flavorful that it would be so difficult to tell the difference. And that's just something that I'm always amazed by, is the vast array of notes and flavors that you can pull just from tea.
Yep, it's so amazing.
Oh yeah. Ooh, there's like a nutmeg.
Orange Pecco is always my favorite flavor.
Shut up. Everybody, this will be the final episode of this podcast.
Oh wait, what? Am I getting hate rated over here? Is that what's happening? Am I getting hate rated?
Wait. Is from me?
Yeah.
No.
I'm just trolling.
I know. So what can you tell me about this tea? I wanna learn more about the tea itself. Because we've talked about the farm before, Naturality.
Yeah, we've talked about them. So this is the guy that Takeshi. He has been doing organic work in his area in Fujita and Shizuoka for 40 years now. And, slowly started out with just his own garden. And I don't think that they started doing this tea processing until just recently. I think maybe only I think it was just before they started working with me, they started making this tea. So it's newer. It's maybe 2008, 2009, they started doing it with their own factory. Before that, they rented out the green tea factory to make the green teas that they're working with. But their harvest was much less. But now that they have this co-op model where they've empowered a lot of other farms in the area to go organic, then he takes their leaf and processes it. And they just got their own green tea factory 4 years ago. But the black tea, they had to do that themselves because no one else was doing it. No, they just started doing it. I unfortunately have not been in their area in the summertime. I don't think I've ever been to Japan in the summer. I've always only been there during the autumn and the winter and the spring. So I haven't seen this tea get processed. I've walked through the factory and seen all the equipment, so it looks just like a standard, tea factory, but unfortunately I haven't seen the process. But I just know that what they were trained on, the protocols, because I did see a couple of other workbooks that some other tea growers had shown me. It was the same content that there's this high degree of oxidation that happens by breaking the leaf up. So the leaf is it is masticated prior to the oxidation process, similar to this Vangeti Pecco. They're not using the pestle and mortar though. They're probably using a more commercial,
conventional
machine. Let me see if I can find a video online.
Yeah, I had there was a thought that went through my brain, and then I had the dial-up modem noise follow it. So don't know what I was thinking there, but so I went on a second steep here, and because we're just having fun hanging out, doing, making tea. I just kind of went into the second steep here like I normally would with a sencha or something, and kind of flash steep it, because that second steep is just a nightmare. And probably could have pushed it a little bit harder, actually. I'm not entirely certain. This one's a little strange, but that first steep was wild.
Someone I did the tea tasting of all the new teas. I did 15 teas in one stream.
Yeah, I was actually sitting through a little bit of that
Cool.
while I was at work.
Cool, awesome, great. Thanks for sitting in. That was pretty fun. I was super stressed out to set that one up. But when I was describing the trial by fire brewing method of this is what we're hitting the tea really hard to bring out the deficiencies or whatever. A fakery, who's also another tea talker. Do you know Fakery?
Oh, we love Fakery. I love Fakery with my entire heart.
Okay, cool. Fakery was hanging out, and he said, so the tea's saying, if you can't have me at my worst, you can't have me at my best. I was like, oh, that's such a great description of trial by fire. Yeah, Fakery is really cool, dude. I just came across his TikTok last month. It was really nice. He's been hanging out a little bit with us.
Yeah. He does a lot of similar streams to kind of your tea talks and stuff.
Yeah.
But
He came
I
to our
like
tea
the
talks this past week. He came to our little Topia tea talks. It was cool.
cool. Oh, nice.
Uh-huh.
I've been wanting to get him on a stream, but he streams too early for me. um, I like the trial by fire name for that because I have not called it that myself, but there's some truth to that, and like because most people that I know that make tea, you know, they when they try a tea for the first time, they have this kind of set list of parameters that they're going to go with the first time. You know, if it's like 5 grams, 150 milliliters, you know, it's a white tea, so we're going to do this degree, this temperature, and then we're going to experiment out of there. But one of my favorite things to do when I get a new tea for the first time, especially if I've got a good amount of it, you know, I can kind of like waste some sessions and just kind of throw some leaves around. There's one of my favorite things to do is just overleaf and oversteep and just see like, you know, what's going to happen. Because I found there are teas that you can like do like 1-to-1 rate, 1 to 10, like 1 gram to 10 milliliters of water ratio, and just steep for 10 minutes, and it's fine. Everything's okay. But it's,
Yeah.
you know, like we were abusing the leaves of that green tea that one time, kind of a similar approach.
Yeah. But if it's a good tea, you should be able to stand up.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think is a really important distinction between, because like, you know, one of the things about Kung Fu Cha is this lower steep time, higher ratio, lower steep time. But you know, when you get into like the history of it, like Kung Fu Cha as a practice, you know, is, and I think you've told this to me before, like really was made as a way of making bad tea better. So like, you know, there's shorter steeps and stuff, but like it's always kind of funny to me to kind of like justify those 10-minute steeps in my brain with my issues with like Western style dust teas of steeping those for too long, because it's just it's an interesting comparison of what's going to happen between the two. But again, the teas that you're sending me, they're like a good tea session makes me sweat and makes me rambly, and I'm having both of those right now.
It's a good
So
one,
did
yeah. I went back in for a second steep of the Japanese black.
Yeah, I might try a third steep, see if I can't push it a little bit harder. I don't know.
I'm sure you can, yeah.
I would have to boil more water, so we'll see if I'm up for that once. So you mentioned the introduction of like black tea into the Japanese tea market being a kind of a cultural exchange. Did it work? Like, is this a popular style of tea in Japan, or?
It's becoming. Every year it becomes more and more. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of the tea is staying domestically in Japan, and the local market is getting educated. But, you know, we've talked about this last time when we talked about this grower, kind of the disadvantage there is in the domestic market for Japanese tea producers, because the young people's idea of tea and their relationship with tea is much closer to boba and to the ready to drink in the bottle. So even if the tea growers start producing this very interesting, unique thing, it still may not succeed there. But I think there, with the domestic or the international sales and the interest, like the U.S. market, most of the tea that we drink is black tea. We're not accustomed to black tea like this. Usually it's just like really lower grade black tea that's gonna have, you know, sugar added to it.
But I could see a black tea like this being much more accessible to somebody that is like, because, you know, there's a difference between like the casual tea drinker and the average aged, yeah, I don't know, whatever, it's, you know, meme formats. But, you know, there are different levels of the average tea enjoyer, and there are people that just want to put a tea bag in their cup and hot water and be done. And then there are some that, you know, like the teapot with the loose leaf and the infuser and stuff. And I could see this tea being a very accessible tea for somebody like that enjoys that loose leaf tea, you know, kind of a little bit slower process, but, you know, they might not be as interested in kind of like delving much further into the topic or whatever, but just this tea being accessible, it has elements of a more Western style tea, but is much more vibrant and interesting, I feel. But
yeah, so yeah, that was the whole reason why tea producers in Japan were interested in diversifying their offerings, because high quality Japanese green tea is strong in umami. It's got very strong character to it. Very
oh,
strong
hell yeah, it does.
umami, which is not well understood by Western world.
It's just bitter.
If you brew it wrong. So yeah,
so you brew it right, it's beautiful.
That's it. But there's other teas that are gaining popularity as well, not just this black tea. So Oolong Teas, the trend of producing Oolong tea has been growing in Japan, as well as fermented teas as well. Have you heard about fermented teas from Japan?
Yes, I have. I was actually reading recently about, because I fell down the Korean tea rabbit hole recently.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, specifically Bellyocha, which is mind-boggling. Specifically, it's mind-boggling when you're trying to view it from the lens of like the traditional Chinese and Japanese styles of tea, because Korean tea is doing its own thing entirely, obviously. Mm-hmm. But yeah, somehow that led me around to like other fermented teas and stuff like that, and I discovered that Japan also has one. It's like a southern prefecture, I believe, that produces it.
Yeah, there's a
if
couple,
I remember correctly.
Couple
yeah.
Of, heritage processing methods, including even like pu'er,
mm-hmm. Like pu'er style.
I haven't tried it specifically. I've heard about it. I've tried the what is it called? Guicha? Guicha? Is that the fermented? I'm not a huge fan of it, and none of the producers that we work with are making it, so I've never gotten into the business of it. I honestly just wouldn't even see a market for it. It's such a niche thing, just kind of a novelty thing for a merchant to have. But it's cool. It's cool, that the Japan is much more than just green teas.
All right, I'm getting sweaty. I'm gonna have to take a tea break here. Holy shit.
Yeah, I just realized, I'm like, I just drank a bunch of tea. I need to take a little break myself.
Oh my god.
Drink some water.
Yeah, so you want to turn on some music and turn off the live sign and just kind of hang out with chat for a little bit?
Yeah, sure, we can hang out for a little bit.
I'm gonna get a drink too.
Oh yeah? Nice.
Oh hell yeah.
I've been having music playing the whole time. I've been getting down over here.
I just keep mine off for the editing purposes, since I'm using my video for like the editing, and just so that I have this backup audio from the stream.
Yeah, got it.
Woo! Okay, I'm gonna turn on the AC real fast because it's heat, and grab myself a drink. So I'll be right back.
Nice. I'll be here. I'll entertain everybody.
What?
So don't worry, I said I'll entertain everybody.
Yes.
While you're gone. So everybody, that was the first steep. We are no longer recording, so if you want to ask some questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I am looking at Colin's chat, so if you want to throw in to Colin's chat, I can see that. Eagle, are you still here on Reddit? Luckiest Pierre. Awesome. We love tea too. You should follow. I stream from my tea table often. You should follow. That way you can come back. And then we had several trolling comments. So there's that. Hell yeah, pay the workers. My 3-month sub anniversary for Colin. It's been 3 months already? Time goes fast. He's back. Juulin.
I return.
Juulin and coolin'.
Don't call me out. Cheers to everybody.
Cheers. Well, what are you drinking? What is that?
This is an AleSmith Speedway Stout. It's an imperial stout with coffee. Good pairing for black tea.
Yeah.
Oh, so okay, thank you, AFan. You turned me on to this whole like tea and alcohol pairing thing, right?
Yeah.
As a concept, and so I found this video, this like Korean tea master like making some baliocha and putting whiskey in it, and I was like, love this man first of all, because every time he does something, and I don't know if that's like a thing. Love that man. He's super cool. But anyway, Japanese whiskey pairs beautifully with some just like really light body green tea. Like really nice. But yeah. Murphy, I don't have that overlay on. Murphy is always trying to like redeem all of my sound alerts to screw with us while we're recording, but what he doesn't know is that I've worked with people like him before.
What's your sheesh? What does this sheesh sound like?
Oh, it's just sheesh.
Sheesh. Sheesh.
So.
Got it.
Elise, did you get any fun questions while we were talking tonight? You usually get the fun questions.
Yeah, well, I got a lot. You really wanna see the questions I got? Isgoy says, how to make tea though? I believe hot water is involved. But hell yeah, pay the workers.
I can support that. As soon as I get around to them, Matt. Actually, so that's a good, just while I'm thinking about it, at least I was going to message you later, but I totally forgot. The week of the 13th, I'm going to be taking that whole week off to focus on the new job. So I won't be recording that week with you. Just since I'm going to be like off work earlier, I will hopefully have more motivation to like blaze through more episodes.
Yeah. Hey, take your time. I'm not in a rush.
Yeah.
I'm going to be traveling that week anyway. I'm going to Europe that week.
Perfect.
So that'll be good. I'll take that Monday off. I don't know if I'll be able to record well, I could. I'm taking all my gear with me, so I could set up to record with you. And I don't know, maybe we'll change the time. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll figure that out, but I just want to let you know that for sure that day, I'm just going to be taking that week because I don't want to commit to times that I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to. Mm-hmm. And also, like, I need to be able to go to bed early because I am not a morning person. But what are you doing in Europe?
Vacationing, but I'll be getting some tea work done. I have some business. You know, I have a lot of customers in Europe, and they don't order too often because the shipping's so high. So my flight is cheaper than shipping a box of tea, so I'm just gonna take tea with me in my bag and supply it that way. Save some money for our clients.
Okay, I guess it just occurred because I was trying to do that math in my head, and then it occurred to me, wait, these people probably aren't paying like the, you know, like $20 to ship the like half a pound. You know, they're probably paying a lot more to ship like a lot more tea.
Yeah, but even $20 for half a pound is really expensive for shipping.
Yeah, that was just an estimation. I don't know what it is exactly. That's a good estimation.
Nope, that's a good estimation actually.
Oh, is it? Say, I couldn't remember off the top of my head, but yeah.
I mean, half a pound. Yeah, $20 for half a pound. That's about right. Which is nothing. Half a pound is nothing. Once you start making it bigger, you know, it does end up being about $20 a kilo, which is too expensive, you know?
Yeah.
So my flight, you know, I can fit, you know, 20 kilos in my suitcase. And my flight was cheaper than what it would cost to ship a box.
All right, I'm just gonna do this here in case anybody just joined. We are talking about tea. We are not moving kilos in suitcases over borders. We are talking specifically about tea.
Yeah. Very fine powdered tea. Yeah, it's mostly matcha. Matcha is the main one
Yeah.
that like is like good cost breakdown for that.
I have a question for you, actually. And I wish I would have thought about this while we were kind of more in the recording mode. I have been hearing a lot lately about a black tea powder similar to matcha that the Japanese produce as well, like peach. It starts with a W, I believe.
Yeah, no, the Koreans are the ones really producing that and getting that out. Yeah, but
Really?
there's some in Japan, but they've been doing it in Korea for a long time. The black matcha.
Yes, tea. The black matcha. See, that is it produced in a similar way to matcha, or is it just?
I don't know
is
yet.
It his own
yeah,
thing?
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't gotten any answers on that. There's not a whole lot online, but yeah, I was at a tea shop in New York City, and they specialize in Korean teas, and they had black matcha, and they made cookies with it. They had other things with it, and I was like, huh.
Oh, I could. Okay.
This is interesting. I didn't know about black matcha. But even they couldn't like the servers at the tea shop there. I was trying to ask like what's the process like, and they were not able to tell me. So it's kind of frustrating sometimes. There's stories in tea like that are kind of like hidden and no one knows how to explain it.
And this seems to be a recurring theme. The more Korean tea that I try and kind of read about is that, to me, that almost feels like it's like a guarded secret, you know. And that's like the whole like kind of view of Korean tea that I've kind of come across, that it all feels like this guarded secret.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to give, like the Korean people don't want to give away the secret of their tea because they want to keep it for themselves. And I'm like, I can get behind that, but it just makes me want to figure out what's going on there more.
Yeah, we should look into it. Try to get some too. There's quite a few vendors that are selling it now. It's become quite a trend.
So I've got a little bit from the Tea Institute. A friend of mine was able to, that lives in South Korea, was at the, I'm gonna mispronounce it, Hadong, Haedong. I don't. But one of the tea institutes in Korea, and actually got me some tea and sent it to me. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But I was having I was drinking some of the barrio chow with somebody in the Discord yesterday, and this person had been to Nepal specifically for like a trip focused on tea and stuff, and we were talking about how it feels like Korean tea is super similar to Nepali tea, and that kind of like the way it developed so separately from other tea cultures, and like these kind of like styles that don't make sense in context of, you know, traditional like Chinese tea, which is what we tend to base things off of. But no, I don't know. I'm, again, just thoughts.
It's an interesting thought. Commonality between Korea and Nepal. It could make sense, like clean soil, high elevation.
Well, I didn't mean necessarily so much in like the way that they taste, in terms of like how the culture around the production has developed, I guess, because I know that Nepal was fairly isolationist for a long time, so like they're just kind of doing their own thing, and Korea, I know, has been the victim of imperialism on multiple occasions, and so they've got a lot of different influences, but just kind of the way that the culture's developed so separately from outside influence just made me think of them, not necessarily the way they tasted, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Oh yeah, no, I understand. I'm not too well versed with Korean teas. I've never been to Korea. I do have some relationships and could get tea, but it's always been such a challenge because the value of that tea domestically in Korea is really high, which is great. It's great for the farmers. It means that there's a strong economy to support them. But, you know, compared to teas coming from China and from Japan, it's once you export it and bring it here, the cost is so much higher. It's really hard to explain to people why the value is different. It's really hard to explain it.
Plus, like, with the difference in the styles, differences in harvesting times too, like, it kind of creates a whole confusion about what the hell am I even drinking.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, shall we call our episode there? And
yeah, I think we did it.
Awesome.
We did it. This was fun.
Really good tea tonight. Thank you for picking these out. I still need to send you some of the Indian Shangpuer because we wanted to do kind of a comparison episode.
Yeah, you gotta send some to me. That way,
yes.
Yeah, we'll drink some of your tea.
Do you want me to just send that to the address that is your shop, or
either, any, or whatever was the return address on other packages you've gotten from me? Either one, or you can just send it to my shop. Either one. You can find my shop's address on Google. Easy. The Google. But I usually don't, like, when I send packages out, I use a different address for the return address, just because sometimes if I'm not here to receive packages, if I don't know I'm gonna get a package, it'll be easy to miss packages. Yeah, packages going missing. I had a really big important package to Florida. Tracking was saying everything was on board, and then there was like a delivery scan, and then nothing, like radio silence. And then I told my client, I'm like, hey, you better go talk to the office, and they didn't deliver it to you. And so he went. They had actually delivered to his box, like a card, we missed you, we have your package. So he went, and when they looked up his tracking number, they were like, oh, this package doesn't exist. This tracking number doesn't exist. It's not a valid tracking number. And all of that information, that tracking information, just gone. And the box is just like disappeared. I'm like, dude, what kind of like Twilight Zone stuff's going on? And it was a lot of tea. I'm like, dang. Yeah, it was a big ass heavy box of teas. Like, how do you lose that? Like, where did it go?
Was it USPS?
Yeah.
Did it end up turning up at any point?
I don't know, but it will, because that's how USPS works. But until then, I'm just gonna put a claim in with them, and I have insurance through a third party, so I can. The money's not a problem. What's the problem is that, like, when you're working in a time of scarcity, where there's like limited amount of stocks that are physically located in the U.S., every leaf is important.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I was like, right now I'm like, oh,
yeah,
that's really the best.
Yeah.
Really best time for anything like that to be happening, but when is the best time?
I felt bad for my client, and nothing we can do other than just be patient. And I have a little bit of stock left to send him, so hopefully that holds him over. But it's good. It means that business is coming back. Things are getting back into motion. It's been kind of stressful the past year and a half, not really knowing what's going on.
Especially considering the COVID situation in Asia being what it was,
Mm-hmm.
Just, I don't know, kind of rampant, but
yeah, it seems to be a mess too. I was looking at India's numbers. I've been keeping an eye on India, and it seems as if they're having another what do you call that, surge?
Another spike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bummer, because. But anyway.
No.
Cool, Colin. It's been fun.
As always, Elise. I will catch you next week. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, next
Perfect.
week. Yep. We'll see you
Cool.
next week.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks
Hopefully,
for joining.
send me that tea. We could do your teas next week.
Yes. I will try and file that away as the thing that I need to do tomorrow.
Cool.
I'll make a note of it. So.
All right. Cool.
All right. Talk to you next time.
All right. Good night. Rest well.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Oh, you got to me. I'm like a ghost. And I'm like delayed and weird. It's weird. I'm out of here. Well, that was fun. Drinking tea with Colin. How many people? We got 3 in Twitch. Should we go raid someone? Reddit, do y'all have any questions before I tune out? I'm happy to answer questions. Always. If not, who should we go raid? Check out this guy's stream. So yeah, y'all, if y'all like tea, you're interested in learning more about tea, please consider giving me a follow. I stream regularly. We do tea education. We also just have fun, you know? Have a lot of music and art. But the tea education is lit. It's top notch. And it's casual, you know, we don't take things too seriously around here. But sometimes we do have more serious presentations. For instance, on Friday of last week, we hosted a virtual tea festival and had an extremely interesting presentation by Shiloh Gastello about the geology of clay, which that video is still streaming. You can see it across all of our platforms. In fact, I'll give you a link now. You can go see that video on its own. It was a Reddit live video, but now it's YouTube. You can go access it on YouTube. I mean, it's still on Reddit. You can find it there too. Well, this guy looks so happy. We should go check out Diogo Marty. Let's go raid him. He's doing a fundraiser. He'll be grateful for the raid. Yeah, that link right there, that bit.ly link, that'll take you to the YouTube video. You should check it out. Diogo's playing some music. Should be fun. Let's go raid him. Give him some love. He's having a ball. Oh, I think our raid happened.